Welcome back, guys. Hope you've been having a great weekend. Unfortunately, though, we've got a number of very disturbing updates to go over in this video regarding the ongoing situation with various governments trying to invade your privacy, censor you, change the internet for the worse. You know, all the sort of stuff we've been talking about for about the last week now, as it's still getting worse, unfortunately. Now, I've got this wonderful little graphic here on screen from the account SK Bytes. And this is just like a quick prologue of the stuff that's been going on leading up to this as a very, very brief recap. Then we'll get into all the new stuff, and I'll show you that in no specific order. I've got like 8 different things that, as mentioned, are all very disturbing. So before we get into that, let's just read this really quick. The graphic says, George Orwell was right, it's happening. Legal speech is now, quote unquote, harmful. Platforms forced to censor you or face ruin. Age checks equal surveillance and digital ID. Privacy crushed. Dissent deleted. They're not banning ideas outright, they're programming the machines to erase them silently. The government has handed itself the power to police thought. This is no longer democracy, it's a digital dictatorship. And yeah, there is a little typo there, but hey, it's a nice graphic. So let's start with this clip that I saw posted by the account Skeletor Explain, showing this member of the UN, Antonio Guterres, or however you say that. Obviously, as you can see, the quality's pretty low. But what's important is what he's saying. So let's play this 30-second clip. Yeah, this is quite an interesting clip. Let's take a look.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. Our policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms puts forward a framework for a concerned international response.
So we've got this member of the UN using this rhetoric to try and justify what these various governments seem to be doing to the internet, saying, once again, digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate. All rhetoric, as mentioned, that they're just trying to use to censor free speech, invade your privacy, police whatever they deem as quote-unquote wrong think. You know, I don't need to sit here explaining it. You guys surely understand all of this. And who exactly is this guy, Antonio Guterres? Well, first paragraph of Wikipedia is I'll be reading on this guy, but this says, a Portuguese politician and diplomat who is serving as the 9th and current Secretary General of the United Nations since 2017. A member of the Portuguese Socialist Party, Guterres served as the Prime Minister of Portugal from 1995 to 2002. This tweet from Samantha Smith goes on to detail, with a video clip we're going to watch, how she was approached by UK's elite police squad, the one that we mentioned the other day when we read this article, which I'll just read the headline of now, the one that said elite police squad to monitor anti-migrant posts on social media. And you can reasonably presume this is the exact sort of quote-unquote hateful speech that Mr. Guterres was referring to in that UN speech in the clip that we watched a moment ago. How dare you criticize these policies? You're not allowed to do that. You might get a knock on your door. And no, I'm not kidding. That seems to be what happened to Samantha. As she says, I went on TV to discuss Pakistani grooming gangs in my labor-run hometown of Telford. The next day, officers banged on my door, wanting to shut me up for exposing them. With the Online Safety Act now in force, no one is safe. If it happened to me, it can happen to anyone.
I was on your show last Monday, same time practically. I came off, there was a fantastic response from the public. I was really my heart was warmed by the support and outreach that I received from those that either didn't know what had been going on in Telford for decades. Up to 1,000 girls had been reported to have been abused by grooming gangs since the 1980s, or those that had no idea that it could potentially still be going on, and the scale of police, council and social services failings. I went back home, I went back to Telford, and the next day around lunchtime 2 police officers banged on my door demanding that I speak to them about my interview.
Really? So the police who have done nothing for the entire third millennium to date suddenly were roused to activity by you going on television.
Yeah, they told me that they had gone round to all of the addresses they had on file for me. They had gone to my previous home addresses, the different accommodations that I'd stayed at, looking for me, and eventually they located me. You know, they hunted me down, they tracked me, banged on my door. You know, not too different to when they're knocking on the door of a perpetrator, of a potential criminal. I was on FaceTime to my friend at the time, who said to me afterwards, "I genuinely thought you were going to get arrested from the way that they were talking to you."
You would think that they would be protecting people who would be trying to expose these grooming gangs, right? Like, you would think the police should want to protect the people exposing them and go after them. But in some sort of twisted world, apparently they're trying to silence the people speaking out about that stuff.
They told me that, quote unquote, when you go on GB News and talk about grooming gangs in Telford, it's our duty to follow up with you.
That's not actually true, is it?
No.
So the police are, among other things, lying to you.
It's funny, I said to them at the time, it was funny that they did absolutely nothing to bring my accusers to justice, but when I went on national TV, my abusers to justice, but when I went on national TV and talked about the industrial scale of their failings and their inaction in bringing to justice the perpetrators of vile sex crimes in Telford, that they are suddenly spurred into action to come and knock on my door and intimidate me into silence.
It's pretty pathetic, these big butch coppers being so insecure that you going on TV and criticising them can drive them into action that they otherwise haven't taken for decades. Do you know who actually ordered up this, I guess raid is the word for it?
I have absolutely no idea. I know that it was two police officers from the CSE team that knocked on my door. They said they had been working for the force for a year and 6 months respectively, and they were, quote unquote, trying to make a difference. I don't...
No way. As if it wasn't bad enough. I mean, that's just silly. I mean, I can't believe that. Oh, we're trying to make a difference here. How dare you speak against this stuff? You're not helping anyone. We're the ones trying to make a difference. You got to be kidding me, dude.
I don't know what difference they were making by going after a victim rather than the perpetrators, those that have been systematically using grooming and passing girls round, like, you know, like
well, for
decades.
Absolutely insane. Of course, there is so much that could be said about that. It is just vastly disturbing, and my apologies for having to cut some of that. You probably saw the disclaimers I put on screen for very brief portions of that clip. She, as mentioned, did go into further detail about these disgusting crimes. And yeah, just think of the worst possible stuff that can happen to women and children. And that's sort of stuff that she's talking about that they apparently don't want her talking about. And that takes us to the next part of the video. In the UK, the Office of Communications is getting more and more desperate, it seems. This account right here, Alex Armstrong, saying exposed. Ofcom, Office of Communications, are paying influencers to spread propaganda about the Online Safety Act in the UK. Orwell's 1984 isn't just here, it's in full motion. Thank you to Dr. Hoenderkamp for bringing this to my attention. And I gotta say, like, before I can even read this, if you're an influencer accepting this money and doing this, I mean, just pathetic beyond words, really. So, goes on to say, paid advertisement. It shows this Instagram account here. It reads, as of the 25th of July, anyone trying to access adult content online will have to prove they are over 18. This is not to ruin anyone's fun, but it's about time that children are protected online. There is an enormous amount of content out there, but some of it is content that is made for adults and not children. This is just the start of trying to make the internet a safer place, and this arrow, which does cut off some of the text there, but the arrow points to, as you can see, this being an advertisement. So, yeah, I mean, if this is all true, this is not a doctored screenshot, which, I mean, I don't think it is, but, you know, as a disclaimer, I will say, assuming this is all true, I mean, how pathetic, man. Like, I couldn't imagine the sort of person that would take money to promote this nonsense, to stand up for this corruption, and to gaslight your own followers about it, to take the money and push this on your followers to try and spread the agenda of these corrupt politicians. I mean, I don't know how someone could possibly ever be okay with that. And it goes without saying, of course, but yeah, doing it for free would be bad too. Yeah, it's just all around, as mentioned, a really pathetic thing. Then I also saw this tweet about the Labour government in Australia and this app called Signal app, which is apparently a very popular messaging app in Australia. I've never heard of it before. If this is like popular around the world, I guess I'm just out of the loop. But the tweet reads from Aus Integrity. Breaking, Labour government demands backdoors into encrypted messaging apps. Whittaker, Signal app's president, said they would exit Australia before giving access, the quote being, "Our commitment to end-to-end encryption, maintaining robust, technically guaranteed privacy for everyone who uses Signal, never wavers." And so the text here in the article says, Signal boss warns Apple exit Australia if forced to hand over users' encrypted messages. So I'll admit, I don't think I fully understand this one, but to my understanding, I don't think Signal currently holds decryption keys. So hypothetically, if the government were to demand like chat logs from their app, they wouldn't be able to hand them over. And this would mean that the government wants them to redesign the app in a way where they create this backdoor access that they would then give the Australian government, which Signal believes would threaten their global security model, and saying they'd rather leave Australia than do such a thing. Unless I have this completely mistaken, which I might. And lastly, we've also got some news over in the US. This article from torrentfreak.com saying U.S. senators introduce new pirate site blocking bill, Blockbeard. Now, it's actually a very wordy article, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will go over, for about a minute or so, what I find to be some of the highlight areas. Earlier this year, U.S. Rep. Zoe Lofgren introduced a new pirate site blocking bill titled the Foreign Anti-Digital Piracy Act, FADPA. This week, a similar proposal was introduced by Senators Tillis, Coons, Blackburn, and Schiff. The bipartisan bill titled Block Bad Electronic Art and Recording Distributors, Blockbeard, aims to introduce a legal mechanism for rights holders to request site blocking orders. The site blocking proposal seeks to amend U.S. copyright law, enabling rights holders to request federal courts to designate online locations as a foreign digital piracy site, quote unquote. If that succeeds, courts can subsequently order U.S. service providers to block access to these sites. Pirate site designation would be dependent on rights holders showing that they are harmed by a site's activities, that reasonable efforts have been made to notify the site's operator, and that a reasonable investigation confirms the operator is not located within the U.S. Additionally, rights holders must show that the site is primarily designed for piracy, has limited commercial purpose, or is intentionally marketed by its operator to promote copyright infringing activities. If the court classifies a website as a foreign pirate site, rights holders can go back to court to request a blocking order. At this stage, the court will determine whether it is technically and practically feasible for ISPs to block the site and consider any potential harm to the public interest. The granted orders would stay in place for a year with the option to extend if necessary. If blocked sites switch to new locations, the court can also amend blocking orders to include new IP addresses and domain names. So yeah, Blockbeard and FADPA do seem to be very similar, mainly differing in the whole DNS resolver part of the proposals and the judicial process that they are also proposing. I could have phrased that better, but yeah. And that's the final thing I wanted to go over in this video, so I'll leave it there. As always, thank you for tuning in. I know it was kind of a gloomy video in many ways, you know, lots of disturbing stuff going on, to say the least. But regardless, I do hope you enjoyed my coverage, and thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and or subscribing. It helps out greatly. I look forward to seeing you here in the comments and in the next one.